Well, hello and welcome. My name is Misheard Song Lyrics with my podcast, Misheard Song Lyrics podcast, and we are in season 3, episode 125, our first ever The Knack misheard song lyric. So the misheard song lyric is my scrotum, and the correct lyrics is my Sharona. Okay, thanks to one of our listeners, Jeff Monteleone, that wrote in his misheard song lyric suggestion. Here's what Jeff wrote. My Sharona by the Knacks. I thought since 7th grade it was my scrotum. I'm 52 and still stand by it. We love Jeff's conviction and what he thought he heard, so we're going to do this episode just for you, Mr. Jeff. All right, so My Sharona is a debut single by the Knack. The song was written by Burton Avere and Doug Fieger and released in 1979. Whoa, from their album Get the Knack. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 singles chart, where it remained for 6 weeks, and was number 1 on Billboard's 1979 Top Pop Singles Year-End chart. It was certified gold by the Recording Industry Association of America, or the RIAA, representing 500,000 copies sold. Now remember, you had to actually buy those albums. You didn't download it. You had to physically go to the store. So amazing. And actually was Capitol Records' fastest gold status debut single since the Beatles' I Want to Hold Your Hand in 1964. Aha. So the Knack, who are they? They are an American rock band based in Los Angeles that rose to fame with, of course, this first single, My Sharona, which became an international number 1 hit in 1979. How did they start? Well, singer Doug Fieger was a native of Oak Park, Michigan, a northern suburb of Detroit, Michigan, and grew up in the 9 Mile Greenfield area, which 9 Miles, if you've heard it before, is in a song by Eminem and I think a movie. So, some people came out of there that were pretty talented. What you probably didn't know is his famous brother. Apparently, Doug Fieger's brother is attorney Jeffrey Fieger, also later known for representing Dr. Death, Mr. Jack Kevorkian, in a series of assisted suicide cases. So that was a big aha. All right, let's go back to the Knack Fieger brother. So Fieger had previously played in an eclectic rock band called Sky, as well as the Sunset Bombers, although Sky had received a modest amount of acclaim, they say, including being produced by Rolling Stones producer Jimmy Miller. The band did break up without having any chart success, and as a result, Fieger made the decision to move to Los Angeles and start another band. Good for him. Shortly after arriving in LA, Fieger met Burton Avere, lead guitarist, backing vocals and keyboards, and the two started a songwriting partnership. Fieger had also known Bruce Gary, who does drums, for years before forming the Knack in '78 with Prescott Niles, bassist. So Niles was the last to join, a week before the band's first show in June of 1978. In the meantime, Fieger had been doubling on bass on a series of demos that the group had shopped to several record labels, because back then they didn't have YouTube or anything. They just had to shop all their songs to record labels, and all of which were unfortunately rejected. Some of the songs later made up the band's debut album, Get the Knack, and included Good Girls Don't. So another did you know is in the interim between when the Knack actually ended up years later after all their success breaking up and 1986 reunion, Doug Fieger worked as a guest vocalist on a few tracks by Was Not Was, and I remember that song. Apparently Fieger had grown up with the band member Don Was, and Was later produced the Knox album Serious Fun, so there was some great crossover there. Fieger also recorded a solo album in 2000 and appeared as a solo artist in the Countdown Spectacular 2 concert series in Australia between late August and early September 2007. He also sang the Knack's favorite, My Sharona Only. Avere, Niles, and Gary briefly continued with former Roadmaster vocalist Stephen Mac McNally as The Game after the Knack's initial breakup in 1985. And then Avere, Niles, and Gary formed The Front with actor Steve Bauer as vocalist, lead vocalist. That's interesting. And then drums, Bruce Gary became a producer. He did archive recordings of Jimi Hendrix and re-recordings of The Ventures, and a sideman performing live and on studio sessions with a wide range of artists. And unfortunately, Gary did die from lymphoma on August 22nd, 2006 at the young age of 55. That's sad to hear. So let's talk about why the song was created. Who is Sharona? Is there really such a person? Well, apparently when Doug Fieger was 25 years old, he met 17-year-old Sharon Alperin, or Sharona Alperin, who inspired a 2-month-long run of songwriting, as well as eventually becoming his girlfriend for the next 4 years. Fieger recounted that, quote unquote, It was like getting hit in the head with a baseball bat. I fell in love with her instantly. And when that happened, it sparked something. And I started writing a lot of songs feverishly in a short amount of time. She was definitely his muse. And then Figer and Avir worked out the structure and melody of the song. Avir was originally averse to using Alperen's name in the song, but Figer wanted to be a direct expression of his feelings. Avir ultimately relented. Figer claimed that My Sharona was written in 15 minutes. Dang, God, sometimes it just takes 15 minutes and you make this, iconic song. So whatever happened to Miss Sharona? So apparently Figer and Alperen, aka Sharona, were engaged at one point but never married. And in a 2005 interview, Figer said that they remained great friends. Alperen went on to a successful career as a realtor in Los Angeles. Okay, so did more digging regarding that. So according to songfacts.com, Sharona Alperen became a high-end real estate agent in California, specializing in celebrity clientele. After the passing of Figer, so Figer passed away, Alperen wrote on her website, quote unquote, "From the time Doug and I first met, both of our lives changed forever. It's very rare for two people to have such an impact on each other. The bond we shared is something that I will treasure as long as I live. He will always have a special place in my heart." Oh. And then also on Song Facts, it also said that the Knack lead singer Doug Figer wrote the lyrics to the song, which is, of course, girl he fancied. But at the time, he was in a long-term relationship when he walked into the clothing store where a high school student named Sharona Alperen had also a boyfriend, was working. Now, there was, of course, that 8-year age difference. And relationship status didn't deter Figer, who was immediately love-struck. So with his girlfriend looking on, he invited Sharona to a show. Not long after, scandalous, he broke up with the girlfriend and professed his love for Sharona. And this obviously made it very weird and creating a really uncomfortable dynamic where he would come on her even though she had a boyfriend who also attended the Knack concerts with her. And it said here, it got pretty heavy when Figer started writing songs about her. They weren't together when he composed My Sharona. So, he tried everything and he wrote a song, and made her look his way. So it worked, right? So after a year after they first met, Sharona gave in, like I said, and they started dating. She joined the band on tour and watched as the song Figer wrote about her elevated them to stardom. The couple were together for about 4 years and engaged at one point before the rock and roll lifestyle and Figer's alcoholism became too much for Sharona and they called it off. In the aftermath, Sharona answered questions about the breakup by saying that she just needed to become her own Sharona, not everybody else's. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Okay, like I said, they became friends, and I alluded to it earlier that both Sharona and Figer were friends until the last week of his life. He died of cancer, on February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2010. And apparently this wasn't the only song that was on the album that was about Sharona and Figer's feelings for the song. That's What the Little Girls Do, and She's So Selfish was also inspired by Miss Sharona. So several other songs, but of course My Sharona was the more popular of the three. And in the interview with the Washington Post, Figer also noted that the song was written from the perspective of a 14-year-old boy. I did not know that. And that the song's stuttering vocal effect on the repeated my Sharona phrase was actually reminiscent of Roger Daltrey's vocals in the 1965 song My Generation by The Who. And the other, did you know, in America at that time, because of the song being very popular, it was an uncommon name to have Sharona, but in the years leading up to the song, only about 10 Sharonas were born each year. And in 1980, though, about 70 American Sharonas entered the world, a spike attributed to the song. So there you go. This is dedicated to all the Sharonas out there. What about the music video? Have you seen it lately? Well, it's not that, not that fancy, but it does the trick. It's performed in a white room and it's no special effects. It's just video about the band. There you go. But it's done quite well, because when I looked at YouTube today as I do this taping of this song, or actually this podcast, it was uploaded back on March 11th, 2009, about 13 years ago today, and it's now at 15,900,000 some views, almost hitting that 16 million realm. So it's doing quite well. So let's talk about its legacy. Leon, get over here. So the New York Times called the song, quote unquote, an emblem of the new wave era in rock and prime example of the brevity of pop fame. Wow. And also during the making of Michael Jackson's 1982 Thriller album, producer Quincy Jones, aspired to include a rock and roll inspired song in the vein of My Sharona, which later on made Jackson write Beat It. So I didn't realize Beat It kind of came from My Sharona a bit. So that's interesting. And then in 2008, My Sharona was ranked in 2 Billboard 50 anniversary charts. It ranked 75 on the Billboard Hot 100 all-time top songs and 16 on the top Billboard Hot 100 rock songs. So that's pretty cool. In 1994, My Sharona re-entered the Billboard Hot 100 chart and peaked at number 91 when it was released as part of the Reality Bites soundtrack album. I remember that movie. In the film itself, the characters dance to the song at a convenience store. This version was remixed by Dave Jordan and features, among other changes, a more prominent drum song. And then it gained, I guess, popularity again in 2005 when there was attention that appeared on the playlist of then U.S. President George W. Bush's iPod. Remember the iPod, youngins? You know it? It was before it was in the iPhone. You had a separate music playing system called the iPod. I digress. And then it came back to prominence during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic because of it sounded almost like my Corona. That could have been. So the band bassist Prescott Niles released a guitar solo instruction video in response to the many parodies of the song which has appeared during the pandemic. All right, let's talk about parodies. Leon, get over here. Sit over here. All right, that's my crazy dog. You know, you can't, when you're recording, it is what it is, right? Okay, so Weird Al Yankovic, king of parodies, did a parody called My Bologna to My Sharona. It was a song that actually kick-started his career in song parody and his first single. I did not know that. Al, before he was considered weird, recorded a few song parodies per songfacts.com that explained that here's kind of the story behind it. Hold on. So let's talk about it. So they, in this, I guess, online information, it says here that, it's an interesting story, that he was a high school student who did some song parodies, including a takeoff on You Don't Bring Me Flowers called You Don't Take Your Showers with Barbra Streisand and Neil Diamond. He sent some to the popular syndicated radio host, Dr. Demento at the time, who wrote back informing Al that he had potential. There you go. This potential was realized when Yankovic was a 19-year-old student at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where he was studying architecture. Interesting. He was a DJ on the school radio station where My Sharona was the most requested song. So many of Al's parodies had to do with food, so he wrote one called My Bologna and recorded it in the bathroom across the hall from the station. This is so interesting. He sent it to Dr. Demento, who played it on his show to wide acclaim, making #1 on his Funny Five countdown for 2 weeks. When the Knack played a show at the college, Al went backstage and introduced himself as the man behind My Bologna. As Al tells it, Doug Feiger said he loved the song and introduced him to the vice president of the Knack's label, Capitol Records, who was standing nearby. This is where fate happens. The Capitol exec signed Al to a deal to release the single, which they did, but with minimal effort. Instead of re-recording the song, they just issued Al's bathroom version in mono and gave it little promotion. That was the end of Al's association with Capitol, but he had success on other labels with I Love Rocky Road and Ricky, and hit pay dirt with his Michael Jackson parody, Eat It, Eat It. And then My Bologna wasn't also the only parody for this Knack song. Others include My Ayatollah by the radio personality Steve Dahl. Now, Steve Dahl was popular because he was a Chicago DJ known for doing that disco demolition, where they got rid of all the disco records, I think at some field, and burned them up. So that's what he became famous for. Leon, get over here. All right. I love my dog. All right. So the single was a hit in Chicago, and the Knack sang it with Dahl at the International Amphitheater in 1980. So, hey, got some fame for it. Other uses of the song, a lot. So here's some just to name a few. It was in video games. So a cover of My Sharona was featured as a downloadable content for their Rock Band series. There you go. It also was in films. It was heard in the 1994 film Reality Bites, which I mentioned earlier, the 1997 Disney film Rocketman, and the trailer for Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, and in J.J. Abrams' Super 8 movie, and then Richard Linklater's Everybody Wants Some in Changing Sides, okay? Then My Sharona was actually used constantly in a Saturday Night Live skit when they usually have Janet Reno's dance party. I did not know this, so I need to look this up on YouTube. And then in 1990, Full House episode One Last Kiss, where Uncle Jesse, played by John Stamos, performs this at his high school reunion. And last but not least, Run DMC used the guitar riff for their 1980 song, It's Tricky, 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 Tricky. Wow, lots to learn from this. And, sad to hear that the lead singer passed away, but I'm glad that he was able to still be friends with the real inspiration, Sharona, and his legacy lives on. So if you have any great suggestions, like our listener, Jeff Monteleone, please send them my way and we'll give you a shout out if you like. And this is what we do. So keep singing those songs wrong. Bye.